We are back for another edition of the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, I'm Jason Foy, always joined by the fighter Pete Rogers Jr. here to break down UFC Kansas City, which goes down on Saturday. Of course, headlined by Ian Machado Gary taking on Carlos Aparates. Of course, we're going to see, can the fighting nerds keep that undefeated streak alive for their male fighters in the UFC? Also, we got the quote-unquote retirement fight of Anthony Smith. If you've followed me for a long time, you know when it comes to combat sports, I don't believe that word. Pete's my guy. But when Pete comes to me and says he's retired, I'm going to go, Pete, why are you lying to yourself?
I don't blame you, Jason, because listen, we got two other fighters on the card that have already retired, and Jimmy Flick and Matt Schnell. And now they are both back on this fight card fighting each other. So it's like, it's far too often you see these short notice, these short retirement stints, guys, getting a particular matchup that is enticing, wanting to come back out there, test their skills. But then people get greedy. They'll go out there, they'll win that matchup, and then they'll get their confidence back, and they'll want to stick around a little bit more. They get paid, they get a win bonus, all the good stuff, and then they end up hanging around a little too long in the sport instead of riding off into the sunset like Khabib Nurmagomedov, like Georges St-Pierre, like very few fighters do. They end up looking at the lights.
Who is after those two?
Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson. That's about it. That's the only three I can really think of.
It's a rarity in the sport. I mean, it's just it's the unfortunate, sad part of this sport. Of course, we come in following UFC 314, Alexander Volkanovski reclaiming the featherweight title. You talk about some of the things we saw. I mean, you can mention about the fighting nerds. I mean, look what they did with 𝐼𝐠𝐻𝐿 in just literally basically 2 months of him going down and working with that team. Looked the best he's ever looked. Paddy Pimblett showed he was a star. Now, of course, how much of that you can also maybe count to maybe the downside of Michael Chandler. And that to me was one of the big things about watching the fight at home and truly being able to listen to the corner audio. Henry Hoof was telling Michael Chandler everything he needed to do. He just didn't execute it.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Michael Chandler being a very entertaining and exciting fighter, but as far as like being the smartest fighter in there, the using the path of least resistance or listening to his corner or fighting strategic and smart in a fight. I mean, this is a guy who was backpacked by Charles Oliveira, and just because he had no other options, decided to leap into the air and slam him backwards, not once, but twice, which I was very surprised Charles Oliveira did not, capitalize and submit him with a rear naked choke in those moments. But, it goes to show you, right? Like you could predict certain fights. Corners and camps can prepare their fighters a certain way, but it ultimately comes down to fight night, and it's what's between the ears on each fighter. It's their brain, right? Like, are they going to execute a game plan? Are they known for straying away from game plans? Do they have confidence? Do they lack confidence? What about the momentum within their career? Are they riding high on a win streak? Are they coming off of horrible losses? Did they just get knocked out? And are they worried about getting knocked out and are a little gun shy coming back into the octagon? I mean, so many variables and intangibles in a mixed martial arts bout. But yeah, I mean, Michael Chandler kind of proved to everybody that doubted him being amongst the elite as just being an entertaining, I don't know, gatekeeper, if you will, but he's not really. I mean, the only 2 wins in the UFC that he has is Dan Hooker in his debut and the ghost of Tony Ferguson. Outside of that, he's been in competitive matchups, and he's had moments, but goodness gracious, it has been a very rough career in the UFC for Michael Chandler.
Now, one of the things that you've been working on over the past couple of weeks is the algorithm for trying to break down these fights. And, of course, it was a great week for that algorithm. Only had one loss in your algorithm. It was when you go back to 314, and we always talk about this, we're trying to get to 650 points, 700 points. There were certain fighters that you needed last week. 𝐼𝐠𝐻𝐿 was one of them, Julian Erosa being another one, Dom Reyes being one of those ones. And, I talked about it, and I'm not trying to pat myself here. I thought it was a fight that it was mispriced. I think it should have been, Dom Reyes should not have been a $7,400 fighter.
Yeah, and it's okay. We will pat you on your back ourselves, because credit to Jason calling the Dom Reyes call, combining the algorithm for me and my gut feelings and, watching fight film. I try to come up with great lineups. I try to come up with technical analysis. But for the algorithm itself, the only fight that it got wrong was the Virna Jandiroba against Yan Xiaonan. And Verna went out there and just blanketed her for 15 minutes and really just dominated that fight. Yan, when she was put on her back, she really had nothing to get up. I mean, the dominant BJJ practitioner in Virna Jandiroba was way too much. Dom Reyes looked excellent. You know, he's not back. He's better, as he says. And, I mean, I kind of believe him. I have to tell you, he's definitely a threat. I mean, his anti-wrestling game is great. His left hand is really, really good. His power for the division. It's just been the durability at times. Jiri Prochazka, the Ryan Spann fight. There's been moments where Dom Reyes has struggled, but I was very happy to see him pick up a win. Levels in the main event where Alex Volkanovski, I thought that he looked solid. He looked good. He had moments where he got hurt. He got clipped. He was busted up in that fight for sure. Diego Lopez had an opportunity to really seal the deal. But I think championship experience is something that we can't really put our finger on.
Yeah.
And it was evident in that fight. It was truly evident that a guy who's been in there with Max Holloway numerous times, he's been in there with Jose Aldo, been in there with Islam Makhachev, Ilia Topuria, that he's been in there with the best. He's lost to some. He's been able to change game plans mid-round, in between rounds. He knows how to fight smart, and I thought Diego Lopez looked limited for being such a high-level BJJ practitioner. He went in there and just went complete boxing heavy. And I don't know. I would like to see him round out his game and really start to threaten people with his excellent jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it was overall. I really enjoyed watching the fights last almost 2 weeks ago. Of course, we didn't have a fight card last weekend because of obviously I think part of it was related to WrestleMania and probably all the TKO resources being in Las Vegas, but also Easter weekend, which is typically a weekend the UFC does not do events. So as we now look ahead to UFC Kansas City, of course, our DraftKings contest is already active. You can sign up for that contest in the description of this show. Of course, always great to see who can take down that contest each and every week. Of course, also we got our Discord channel as well. But, when you look at this one, I mean, first one, the main event, the pricing does kind of stick out to you. I do wonder, especially when we look at the betting side of this one, the fact of Ian Machado Gary, a minus 125 betting favorite, plus 105 for Carlos Pradas. I do wonder how much maybe the success of the Fighting Nerds has played into this one. That to me, I mean, price point wise, I really feel like it's going to be hard for me to get away from the main event. If I was going to get away from the main event this week, when we're talking about from a daily fantasy perspective, I think it'd probably be more of an ownership play. Co-main event, with Anthony Smith, it's one of those things of if he can make this an all-around mixed martial arts fight, maybe you don't mind playing that dog there. I will say this. I was kind of surprised on the price point of 𝐾𝐲𝐬 and David Onama. Obviously it's been a little bit of a while since we've seen 𝐾𝐲𝐬 in there, but, that price point kind of stuck out to me a little bit. Andre Muniz at 6,500, even though things have not gone well for him, was another price point that kind of was like, wow, okay.
Yeah, I think all in all, right? Like there are some very surprising fight lines. There's some surprising salaries for DFS. Looking at the card from the top down, I was pretty surprised that Ian Machado Gary was at such a valuable line, in my opinion. Sitting at, what's he now, minus 135 over Carlos Pradas, and 8,500 for DFS. You have Ian Machado Gary coming off a very, very competitive fight against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Went 25 minutes, displayed toughness, displayed overall well-rounded mixed martial arts, threatening with a rear naked choke in a moment, could possibly, take out the boogeyman. And now you're going up against the most exciting team in the Fighting Nerds of Carlos Pradas. I don't know who's the best one out of all of them. It's really hard. I think Mauricio Huffy's probably in the lead for me as who looks the most untouchable. John Silva looks excellent as he hit Bryce Mitchell with a ninja choke 2 weeks ago. And you have Carlos Pradas, who is definitely he's a scary guy. I really can't tell you who's who's the best or what the tier is for these guys. But Carlos Prates, an exceptional Muay Thai fighter. I don't know what I expected this line to be, but it wasn't this,
Yeah.
because I think it's a very tempting underdog that Vegas is trying to hope that people go towards because of, the Fighting Nerds. He's an exciting knockout artist and he's looked unbeatable thus far. And then you have some crazy big favorites throughout the card, Zheng Ming Yang against Anthony Smith, David Onama. I mean, all in all, I'm very excited for the card, and there are a few underdogs that stuck out to me. But I'm pretty happy that we have a decent sized card for this weekend.
Yeah, also, you got some big 9,000 favorites this week that stick out to you. Gutierrez, Castaneda, which, when we break down that fight, I'll kind of explain. DFS aspect, that might be an X out. It might just be an X out for me. Even though
there might be one side that's definitely an X out for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, because we've seen with it, Matt Schnell and Jimmy Flick. I mean, when I first saw Matt Schnell at 9,200, I was like, whew. Because at flyweight, if you like had a list of boom bust fighters in every weight class, Matt Schnell would be the pick at 125.
Yeah, that's the GPP priority fight for me. I mean, that's a crazy, crazy one. I expect it to finish inside the distance. Both guys have retired, and the matchup is so tempting and tasty that Matt Schnell says, yeah, I'll come out of retirement. I want to go out on a win. So hopefully he comes out and puts on a show. But altogether, man, volatility in that matchup.
Yeah. Well, we'll get into all of this. Of course, we appreciate everyone who tunes in each and every week for the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, whether you're watching us on YouTube or listen to us after the fact. Of course, also be sure to follow us on TikTok, Fight HQ. Appreciate all the follows that we do get there. Let's get right into it. The main event is a welterweight matchup. We got Ian Machado Gary taking on Carlos Prates, as we mentioned. Price point on DraftKings from a DFS perspective, $8,500 for Gary, $7,700 for Prates. The betting line, when I did my spreadsheet earlier today, was -125 for Gary, plus 105 for Prates. And just looking over at best fight odds, really, it seems like a lot of money started coming in after UFC 314 on Carlos Prates. And then as kind of time has gone over the past couple of days, more and more money from the betting public does seem to be coming in on Ian Machado Gary. Of course, last time we saw Ian was back in December of last year, losing that decision against Rakhmonov. Kind of crazy that he was surprised that he didn't get the call for the title matchup against Belal, which I'm kind of like, bro, you lost your last fight. Not many guys can really pull that one off there. Looking at some other things with Ian Machado Gary, he's gone the distance in 4 straight fights, and 6 of his 9 UFC fights have gone the distance. His 3 UFC wins are by TKO and KO, of course, with Carlos Prates. Talking about the Fighting Nerds team, if we count how Oshachik male fighters on the team are 20-0 in the UFC. 𝐃𝐨𝐵 may be the best one that is a part of that team. This is, of course, the first time we see Carlos Prates since November getting that first-round victory against Neil Magny. He had 2 other previous fights that were scheduled, one against Randy Brown, one against Jeff Neal. And one of the things that did stick out to me about this matchup, Pete, and while Carlos Prates does have a 4-inch reach advantage, I do wonder, do we see a little takedown city from Ian Machado Gary?
Yeah, I'm really interested in this matchup. I love both fighters. I really, really I really think that Carlos Prates has some of the best Muay Thai we've seen in some time. Very similar to Anderson Silva, southpaw demon, big left hand, beautiful knee to the body. I called the knee to the liver against Charles Radke. He's a very dangerous fighter, but I think that there's a particular matchup that he's going to struggle in, and it's a guy against, in Ian Gary this weekend, because Ian Gary is a pretty mobile striker, very talented in his own right. I mean, when you look at these guys, Ian Gary is 6'3", Carlos Prates is 6'1", 4-inch reach advantage for Carlos Prates, but with the height difference, it's only 2 inches in the height plus reach department for Carlos Prates. 4 years younger is Ian Machado Gary, just coming off of a massive, massive step up in competition against Shavkat Rakhmonov, the boogeyman of the division. And now he's looking to come out there and take away all the hype from Carlos Prates, who is everybody's favorite right now to really just tear through the division. And I think there's a particular style and that 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary can succeed with, and it's being on his bike, not staying stationary. I mean, Carlos Prates is an exceptional Muay Thai practitioner, kind of flat-footed. When he puts his combinations together, you better be out of the way, because you don't want to get hit with anything. That straight left hand, the knee to the body, when he knocks people out, man, the way that these people are, they go out cold brutally. And we've seen 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary look susceptible to big shots in the past. So there's definitely a path for Carlos Prates to land a shot and knock out 𝐒𝐮 Gary. The problem is we've seen a different type of 𝐒𝐮 Gary since he started to incorporate his training with Shoot the Box Diego Lima and Charles do Bronx Oliveira, sparring Charles Oliveira, rolling with Charles Oliveira all the time. I can really see the differences, even if they're subtle, simple differences, where 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary in a particular matchup against a striker could look to exploit a weakness of Carlos Prates that is for the most part untapped in the UFC. We haven't seen it. So how does he look on bottom if he gets taken down in the UFC? How does he look or deal with adversity? We've seen it from 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary, and he's gone out there and come through and got knocked down and fought back. And as long as he's conscious, he's going to go out there and give it his all. And I really like the fact that he went 25 minutes with Shavkat Rakhmonov, a guy that has been one of the best finishers in the division. So, 𝐒𝐮 Gary, to me, is one of the best value pieces of the week. He could very well get knocked out for sure. But if you look at the volume, strikes attempted per minute, 8.74 for 𝐒𝐮 Gary, 7.7 for Carlos Prates. 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary, the better striking defense at 51%, where Prates is at 48%. You already know that Prates is not going to be looking for takedowns, and you know that 𝐒𝐮 Gary should and will look to implement takedowns, put him against the cage. I think he's got to be very careful about putting Carlos Prates against the cage because of the elbows and the knees. But I think that, he could really look to wrestle or take the back of Carlos Prates and just wear on him. I mean, this is a guy in Carlos Prates who is known for having a smoking habit too, right? Like, let's call it what it is. Like, he looks phenomenal in 3-round fights because he knocks most of his opponents out. But what happens if this is a 25-minute fight? I've already seen 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary push a crazy pace. I've seen him go in there and not get knocked out against some crazy finishers. I know he has the better jiu-jitsu. Fighting Nerds could be doing wonders for Carlos Prates, and all the training with 𝐃𝐢𝐬𝐼 and the rest of the Fighting Nerds team could have Prates so prepared for a situation like this. But until I see it, I'm going to pick the better 25-minute fighter and the better mixed martial artist in 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary. I think that he's going to put together a beautiful performance. He has to move a lot. He has to frustrate Carlos Prates, and he has to kind of dance on the outside. And I think as time goes on, similar to Diego Lopez and Alexander Volkanovski, Volkanovski just started to chip away and get ahead and get into too much of a lead that Diego Lopez, by the end of it, I mean, he was round 1 or maybe round 2 or a bust in my opinion. So when the fight kept going on, I felt more and more comfortable with Volkanovski bets, and I feel the same way this week about 𝐒𝐮 Gary. So the pick is 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary. What I want to happen is Carlos Prates to keep the knockout streak going because he's such an exciting fighter, and I don't want the Fighting Nerds streak to come to an end because I am a massive, massive Fighting Nerds fan. But I think one day it's going to come to an end, and I think it's this weekend. Give me 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary to pull off the victory over Carlos Prates, and I think it's over 25 minutes or utilization of his jiu-jitsu. I think he submits Carlos Prates, to be honest.
Yeah, I like 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary in this matchup. When we're talking from a DFS aspect, don't mind getting to Carlos Prates in case maybe he is able to catch 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary. From a betting perspective, I'd rather just, I think 𝐒𝐮 Machado Gary will be a parlay piece, a money line piece for me. You probably, if you want to take Machado Gary, you probably should just make that bet now, not wait till the end of the week, because I think that number is going to get worse as the week goes on. I wouldn't be surprised that ultimately ends up being around minus 150 or so by the time this fight happens on Saturday night. But Machado
Gary,
more
than that, Jason. It might be more than that. It's at minus 135 already. So it's like, I think the sharps are starting to get a hold of it. I think it's probably minus 180 come fight night.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be a parlay piece, and, because my sports book here in Florida, the Hard Rock app, is now starting to offer the props on takedowns and significant strikes. Gonna get dangerous. Gonna get dangerous from
Just wait, dude. Just wait, Jason. It's very fun.
I will tell you,
very fun.
Last week, there was one prop I wanted to pull the number on, and it was Virna Jandiroba takedowns. They had it at 2.5, and I was like, God. And I was like, I already had a couple big plays out there already, so I wasn't really trying to, I try to be smart about my MMA betting. I'm one of those. I've gotten to that thing of, let me just make all my bets before the fights even start. Don't try to chase money as the fight card goes on. Just don't do it. Just make your bets and see how they go. But when I saw that prop, I was like, oh man. I was like, that's an overplay. I go, if she wins this fight, she's getting 3 takedowns. She's getting a takedown a round.
I took it, and the mindset is 1 a round, right? She needs 1 a round, and not to finish her either, because she could get the takedowns pretty easily. And if she subbed her in the second round, I mean, you're shit out of luck. But I love it. I love playing the takedown props. The algorithm and everything that I have really puts together an accurate projection of what takedowns should, like the amount of takedowns that should be attempted and how many should be landed. The only thing I still have not come up with for a solution is control time. Just because it's not a big, it's not a big database for UFC stats. It's not one of the stats that they list. So I would have to manually go through every fighter and calculate the control time. It would just be too much work. But I want them to do that, or I want to come up with a way to do so, because that would definitely be very, very beneficial to all of us here.
One thing I'll mention that you talked about with Carlos Prates about the smoking cigarettes. One of my broadcast partners for Double Down is Emilio Urrutia. Emilio has trained with Carlos in Thailand, and he goes, it's no BS. This dude literally smokes a pack a day.
Oh. Mm-hmm. And that's common in Thailand too, drinking and smoking too. So it's one of those things that it does make you wonder from an athlete perspective of that's got to catch up with you at some point. Johnny Manziel, he's gonna.
I look at it, I say, I just saw a picture today on X. Patty Penn was already up to I think I said 198 pounds.
It did.
Said he had 5 milkshakes after the fight.
Yeah, he's got an eating disorder for sure. He takes it to a completely different level.
Could you imagine being that nutritionist?
Oh no. Yeah, I know, right? Like, good God. You know what I think though? Like, Carlos Prates can probably strike all day long. 25 minutes, no problem at all. But if Ian Machado Gary incorporates the correct game plan, the wrestling, the cage work, like making it a true MMA fight, you wonder, because any athlete or any fighter who is forced to compete in the discipline that they're the weakest is going to fatigue. And if Prates has to wrestle or defend takedowns or get up or, play jiu-jitsu or starts getting ground up, I think we can see that gas tank completely diminish, like suddenly. And all of a sudden you're like, dude, this guy looks terrible. Even Michael Chandler, who doesn't take a day off of strength and conditioning. He looked exhausted. He looked terrible out there.
Yeah, it's one of those things of, even the 𝐾𝐲𝐬𝐳 fight, one of the concerns I started having if I was going on was like, man, he's going hard for these submissions. I go, you don't want to wear out those arms. God, who was the other one? Oh, it was the PFL fight last week with Dalton Rosta. Dalton is I mean, very muscular. I mean, let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
Very muscular.
Yeah.
And he looked great. That was one of the ones, and I put it in our Discord channel last week. That was a line that kind of kept bouncing back and forth on 𝐉𝐶 being the favorite, Dalton Ross being the favorite. That was one of the underdogs I did like over there at PFL. Of course, PFL's got a couple-week break here in terms of that. But, Dalton Ross is definitely a guy to pay attention to there. Next up, we got Anthony Smith in his quote-unquote retirement fight, taking on Zhang Mingyang, who is a minus 550 betting favorite, plus 375 for Lionheart, who is 6,600 on DK. Ming Yang is 9,600 over on DraftKings. Of course, when you talk about Anthony Smith, veteran of the sport, he has had 24 fights in the UFC. 17 of those 24 have ended via finish, but it's not gone well for him since 2002. 2-5. His wins against Ryan Spann and Victor Petrino. The losses: Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker, Lil Roundtree, Roman Dolidze, and Dominic Reyes. 10 years older than his opponent in this matchup, who comes to the UFC, enters the UFC from the road to the UFC, where on the road to the UFC fight, he was a plus 450 betting underdog, goes out there and gets the knockout victory. And then, of course, both of his official UFC fights, first round TKO KO victories, get Brinson Ribeiro and Ozzy Diaz. And, one of the concerns Pete, I think I have with this matchup is, what happens if Anthony Smith lets this thing hit the ground?
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Anthony Smith pull off crazy victories in the past, right? Like, I remember when him and Ryan Spann were beefing, and there was a lot in the lead up, and he pulled off a rear naked choke in round 1 after knocking down Ryan Spann 2 times. But that was back in 2021. I remember that like that was yesterday. And I also remember when he went out there and kind of fraud checked Jimmy Crute and leg kicked the hell out of him. And ended up winning by TKO in round 1 because Crute couldn't stand on his leg. And he got hit in the calf several times. And despite taking Anthony Smith down 3 times, Anthony Smith spoiled the party. We seen him against Vitor Petrino, who Petrino was supposed to go in there and completely annihilate him. But Vitor Petrino's fight IQ is non-existent. And he went for a very explosive, exposed double leg against the cage, tried to lift Anthony Smith, and Anthony Smith just pulled guillotine and ended up submitting him with a beautiful guillotine choke. And all this goes to show you that Anthony Smith is live to pull off an upset. His jiu-jitsu is probably his sneakiest path to victory over many, many fighters, and people sleep on him. And I think that his jiu-jitsu can always bail him out. And there are question marks surrounding Zhang Mingyang, but let's call it what it is. Zhang Mingyang should not be looking for takedowns here, and Anthony Smith is not a particularly strong wrestler at all. So Zhang will stay at range, 10 years younger than Anthony Smith, throwing out crazy powerful combinations, and should light Anthony Smith up completely. I like Anthony Smith, but when he gets cracked nowadays, he looks for a way out many different times. And I think that gut check performance is gone. I think that, hoping that he's going to dig deep when the moments get tough, I don't really foresee that happening. If a grappling exchange happens, then I'm interested, right? Because obviously if this fight gets extended and Anthony Smith can chain a takedown together, or if Zhang Mingyang for whatever reason wants to work on his wrestling and leaves his neck out there, then that's where a under 5% chance of Anthony Smith coming through with a submission happens. But I just don't see Zhang Mingyang as that type of stylistic fighter to go out there and put himself in harm's way. So, and as long as this fight is standing, I expect him to crack Anthony Smith with some big shots. Anthony Smith has a good jab, and that's really it on the feet for me. I mean, things have changed dramatically for Anthony Smith, and I think we're gonna see the co-main event end inside the distance in probably round 1. Zhang Mingyang is a massive favorite, and if you look at his strength of schedule, you would be really, really surprised at the line because for what Anthony Smith has done in the UFC, you wouldn't expect him to be a plus 380 underdog against Zhang Mingyang, who hasn't really beaten many talented or skilled fighters but Zhang Mingyang sits at minus 500. It's a retirement fight, right? I mean, 1 foot in, 1 foot out already. Smith has shown poor body language when he gets hit. And I just think that Zhang cracks, and I think he's going to knock out Anthony Smith, unfortunately. And Anthony Smith is going to retire. So give me Zhang Mingyang here as a minus 500 favorite, probably in round 1. And then, for DFS, he's at 9,600. He might even be live to finish him in the first minute. We've seen Zhang go out there and go crazy, but I think just a strong round 1 or round 2 KO is the most likely.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing about this fight, and especially looking at from the betting side of the equation, this one, I expect the under 1.5 to be fairly juiced. I would expect inside the distance to be fairly juiced. One of the props that I've been playing a lot with on the Hard Rock app is, fight ends via TKO KO. That's it, depending on where that line is placed at on Saturday, I would imagine it's probably going to be juiced, and it might be something that I try to do a little bit of a parlay piece on. I mean, to me, the one thing here is we're talking about a massive step up in competition. Yes, Anthony Smith is not who, when you think about when he had that run to the UFC light heavyweight title, that's not the guy that's stepping into the cage on Saturday night at UFC Kansas City. But I do, there is part of my concern that says, man, this is a big step up in competition for Mingyang, and how does he handle that competition? And look, and if this thing gets past 5 minutes, I might be trying to live bet this one, depending on how things go there in the opening round. But the pick for me is going to be Mingyang. And I'm with you. I think someone's getting finished in this matchup, and I think it's more than likely it is Anthony Smith getting finished in this one. Next up, we've got 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 taking on David Onama. This is my second favorite fight on this fight card. 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳, 7,400 on DraftKings. Onama, 8,800. Onama, a minus 180 betting favorite, plus 150 for Giga. Of course, the last time we saw Giga was back in July of last year, losing a decision at UFC 304 against Arnold Allen. He is a fighter that has not been very active over the past couple of years due to injuries. It's only going to be his 4th fight since 2022. 7 of his kind of a surprising stat when I pulled this one up today. 7 of his 10 UFC fights have gone the distance. Both of his UFC losses, he's 8-2 in the UFC, are via decision. David Onama, 3-fight winning streak in this one. 4 of his 7 UFC fights have gone the distance, but I think it's really that last matchup and we'll talk about Romero later on in the show as well. The thing that sticks out to me about that matchup was it was a short notice, and David Onama didn't look very good.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fault him too much because you know what? A lot of times these short notice guys come in here and they come out hot, shooting out of a cannon, and they catch these veterans a little cold or a little unsuspecting. I mean, how many times have we seen these short notice guys come in here and look, fantastic? Gabriel Santos came in on short notice, looked amazing, disappointed in the second bout. You have, I forget which short notice guy came in against Manel Kape. I mean, you see it time and time again where these guys are coming in and like hurting, knocking down, almost spoiling as massive, massive underdogs. And I think, honestly, it's a mentality situation where they know they got nothing to lose. So they're going to go out there. I mean, they're just looking to impress. And it's a way into the promotion. And I could see technically why you would want to possibly, criticize David Onama. I mean, he got hit with a big shot over the top, and his legs went completely out. But he demonstrated toughness. And he fought back and clawed back, and in that same round knocked down Romero. That David Onama is a very well-rounded fighter, definitely more well-rounded than his opponent 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳. 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳, a very kick-oriented striker, former K1 kickboxer, and has gone into the UFC and has had phenomenal success given particular matchups. And honestly, in hindsight, when I look back at these matchups, it's excellent matchmaking with his management. I mean, the Edson Barboza performance was exceptional. That's a great matchup. The Cub Swanson fight, that's a great matchup. There are so many matchups of 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 throughout his career where it's like, I like that for him because he's not facing true true well-rounded fighters that are going to test his weakness. Now, David Onama, very, very talented in the boxing department, just good striking overall. Attempts 11.2 strikes per minute, whereas 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 attempts 9.3. Most people are a little gun shy against 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 because of the kicks and the range at which he operates. I got to tell you that I think, similar to the main event, David Onama is going to lace up those wrestling shoes. He's definitely the more well-rounded fighter here. We've seen 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 put in bad spots on the mat. His initial takedown defense is okay, but I think that he is so taxed when he's forced to defend takedowns, when he's forced to stand back up. This could be a close fight if it's just a kickboxing fight, but I still favor David Onama slightly. Obviously, the kicks worry me. The Giga kick to the body, the incredible flexibility and diversity of kicks that 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 will throw out there. But ultimately, I'm going to be picking David Onama here. I think that David Onama hasn't had a staple breakthrough win yet against a solid name. Lost his debut on short notice against Jones, knocked out Gabriel Benitez, submitted Garrett Armfield, lost to Nate Landwehr. That fight was insane. Beat Gabriel Santos, beat Jonathan Pierce, and then just beat Romero. I think 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭's name holds some value within the MMA community, that a win over 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 should start to put some respect on David Onama's name. And I think if he goes out there 6 years younger than 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 and starts to implement wrestling, or puts him against the cage and dirty boxes him, leans on him, fatigues him, I think that he could go out there and put a very, very good performance together. The strength of schedule between both of these fighters is pretty significant. You have David Onama's total strength of schedule sitting at 63% of win percentage, whereas 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭's complete career sits at 55%. Anything in the 50s or below is pretty low. A part of the wins, you have David Onama at 59% and 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 at a flat 50. So I'm expecting David Onama to go out there and just put together a very talented performance. But I can see why 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 is a tempting underdog. If this is just a kickboxing fight, David Onama's a fool. He needs to just blend the arts and make 𝐾𝐸𝐬𝐳 𝐶𝐭 work in areas that he's not comfortable. But give me David Onama here. 8,800, not my favorite fight, though. I have to tell you, and I could be dead wrong. Like, I love it from a viewing aspect, from a fan aspect. But for DFS, both of these guys have a tendency to go long. And I think that they're both talented enough that they can nullify each other. So give me David Onama, but I may be a little lighter on this fight than most people.
And one thing you do have to remember is Onama returning to Kansas City, where, he trained for a long time in Lee Summit, Missouri, not that far from Kansas City, Missouri. So, he's been training at Factory X. He spent pretty much his entire camp out there at Factory X. It'd be interesting to see how much of the takedowns does maybe he incorporate in terms of this matchup. I kind of, it's just, for me, from a DFS perspective, I totally get where you're coming from. Kind of one of my concerns is just kind of that price tag. Like, if you told me I had to roster either one of these guys, I might take the salary savings on Giga at 7,400, but I would also be concerned about the fact of Giga in a decision of what is that fantasy score upside. That would scare me a little bit. I almost feel like, the props on this fight going the distance aren't out yet. That might be a prop that I'm really looking at, and I kind of feel like it might be juiced a little bit, but that's be one that I'm going to look at there. We'll move over to our next step matchup. We got 𝐿𝐶𝐵H taking a boost 𝐉𝐸𝐻. 𝐉𝐸𝐻 a plus 130. Betting underdog minus 155 for 𝐿𝐶𝐵H, who's 8,600 on DraftKings. At boost 𝐉𝐸𝐻, he was 7,600. Of course, the last time we saw Michelle was back there in October of last year, where he lost in the 5th round against Anthony Hernandez. That did snap a 8-fight winning streak. His last 3 fights in that winning streak were all via first-round victories, which were against Andre Petroski, Michał Oleksiejczuk, and Ihor Potieria. When you look at 𝐉𝐸𝐻, he's won back-to-back fights. Of course, came in, lost to Sean Strickland, lost to 𝐃𝐬𝐬𝐵. I mean, look, they're the top 5 in this division, but and generally speaking, throughout his career, he has been a finisher, Pete. But he also another thing to look at here, a 5-inch reach advantage.
Yeah, so I'm interested for in this matchup, mainly because 𝗲𝐶𝐬𝐵 is an exciting fighter, but 𝐉𝐵 is a pretty slept-on fighter for the division, and his most recent win has aged pretty damn well over Bruno Ferreira, where he submitted him in the 3rd round, and we've seen what Bruno Ferreira has done, and he's looked pretty dangerous in the striking department, but also the takedown and jiu-jitsu department as well. 𝗲𝐶𝐬𝐵, man, coming off a career-worst performance against Anthony 𝗲𝐵 Hernandez, scoring 17.3 points in a 25-minute fight, or almost a 25-minute fight, when he was finished in the 5th round. My God. Landed only 24 significant strikes, had 1 reversal, and man, oh man, did he have no answer for Anthony 𝗲𝐵 Hernandez's volume. Anthony 𝗲𝐵 Hernandez is just an absolute machine. He's the 𝗲𝐵 Dvalishvili of that division. He goes out there and pushes a tremendous pace in the striking, in the wrestling, in the grappling, and the second you start defending one, he makes you work in a different area. Now, I don't expect 𝐉𝐵 to be able to replicate any of that, but I do like the steps that I've been seeing from 𝐉𝐵. He's been training an American Top Team. His main training partner this entire camp is 𝐼kram Aliskerov. And 𝐼kram Aliskerov's in for an excellent matchup against Andre Muniz, and 𝐉𝐵 is facing Michel Pereira. So it's literally perfect training partners for each other. And, I did not like what I saw from Michel Pereira at all against Anthony 𝗲𝐵 Hernandez. Now, granted, Abus is not fluffy, but I still find it kind of odd that Michel Pereira is a decent favorite over a guy with a similar path to victory of utilizing takedowns and top control to win the bout. I mean, Michel Pereira is a -130 favorite. That's not bad for betting. But for DFS, sitting at 8,600, a little bit of a head scratcher to me. Like in the striking department, you have Pereira with the better volume and the better flair behind everything that he throws, attempting 8 strikes per minute, where 𝐉𝐵 is at 6 strikes per minute. But it's the takedowns where Michel can implement takedowns against weaker opposition, but it's not going to happen here against 𝐉𝐵. Magomedov's takedown defense is sitting at 100% right now, and I expect Abus to be attempting takedowns. His takedowns per 15 minutes sits at 3.12 with an accuracy of 64%, which translates to almost 5 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. And going up against a guy that just got ragdolled in Michel Pereira, his takedown defense sits at 76%. I thought it was going to be a hell of a lot worse after getting ragdolled as much as he did, but he was really the first guy to go out there and put a game plan and blueprint out there of how to beat Michel Pereira. And truthfully, I think that's what it is it's going to go, let's try to replicate that game plan. Let's land takedowns. Let's attempt submissions. Let's land some ground and pound. I have the projected fantasy points being very, very similar between these two, separated by 1 fantasy point. But once I start taking the size into consideration, like Michel Pereira is 3 years younger than 𝐉𝐵. I found that extremely interesting. But in the height plus reach department, 𝐉𝐵 has 6 inches, which should be enough to handle Michel Pereira. So I like my first underdog of the card in 𝐉𝐵 sitting here at 7,600. Is it going to be the best DFS performance? Maybe, maybe not. I mean, the way my model is projecting it, where it's like it seems to be a mediocre score, but it comes through as a win for 𝐉𝐵. But I mean, Abus is a big guy, and training with 𝐼kram Aliskerov and everybody, Steve Mako and the team at American Top Team, really makes me kind of just scratch my head and say, I think 𝐉𝐵 could actually approach a pretty solid performance here. I mean, attempting 5 takedowns in this one, the top control, combined with the control time, with the submission possibility, with the ground and pound possibility, the mat returns. Yeah, give me 𝐉𝐵 here at 7,600. He's going to be one of my favorite underdogs of the week.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of wonder, do we kind of see that Michelle has calmed down a lot over the past couple of years? I mean, you think about when he first came to the UFC, really utilizing that capoeira style. But, as you look over the past couple of years, he's really become more of a patient, I think is another word to describe, especially when you look at that winning streak that he had been on there. But definitely don't mind the underdog call in terms of that one. Next up, we got Go ahead.
Real quick, I will never forget Jason calling one of the best underdogs in a while. Remember Tristan Connolly?
Yeah.
Against Michelle Pereira? I remember Jason calling that one. And he's like, yeah, I got concerns about this guy who's doing backflips on people. And I think that if Tristan Connolly goes out there and wrestles, we could see a completely different game. And sure enough, Jason strikes again. So, I mean, man, that's some time ago. It's not even listed right here on the DraftKings app. But goodness gracious.
I almost feel like that's pre-COVID.
It might be. Tristan Connolly, he lost to Tristan Connolly via unanimous decision. Connolly, 64 significant strikes landed. Michelle Pereira, 32. Michelle Pereira had 2 takedowns. What the hell? But Connolly had almost 6 minutes of control time. So, I mean, he's a different guy when he's on bottom. And that's kind of what happened in that Fluffy Hernandez fight and what I'm expecting is going to happen here against 𝐉𝐸 Magomedov.
Next up, we got Randy Brown taking on Nicholas Dalby. Randy Brown, a -240 betting favorite, +195 for Nicholas Dalby, who is 7,300 DK. Randy Brown, 8,900 on DK. Randy Brown's been on a nice little roll here since 2021, winning 7 of his 9 fights. He is coming off a split decision loss in his last matchup against Brian Battle. 3 of his last 4 fights have gone the distance. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage in this one. Nicholas Dalby, he's had 13 UFC fights. 11 have gone the distance, coming off a split decision loss back in June against Hanat Fakhretdinov. He was supposed to have a fight there back in November of last year. Unfortunately, had to pull out of it. This is another one, man. We're talking about from a daily fantasy perspective. I don't know if I like it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. And I have to tell you, buyer beware every time that you're going up against Nicholas Dalby. I mean, the guy is he's a guy that's such a vet in the sport. He's well-rounded. He is a pace pusher in certain moments and in certain matchups. Very, very intelligent, cerebral fighter. We seen him go out there and break one of the brothers, one of the Bonfim brothers, Gabriel Bonfim. And when I go through this matchup, there are a lot of similarities between these guys. I mean, you have Randy Brown with 9.25 strikes attempted per minute. Nicholas Dalby, 9.44. So more strikes attempted for Nicholas Dalby. That's crazy. You have Randy Brown with 0.81 takedowns per 15 minutes. Nicholas Dalby with 1.01. Oh, boy. When you take their accuracy into consideration, how many takedowns are attempted by each of these guys? 2.07 for Randy Brown, 3.7 for Nicholas Dalby. Man, oh man, Nicholas Dalby is edging out Randy Brown everywhere. Opponent takedown defense. Randy Brown has 73% takedown defense. Nicholas Dalby at 58%. So far, man, this is a very, very close fight when you look at it from the metrics. Super weird. I didn't expect that when I was creating, when I was putting the data into the algorithm and seeing what the model put together. I was very intrigued by that. But when I sit there and I see, Randy Brown is 6 years younger than Nicholas Dalby. Okay. And in the height plus reach department, he has 8 inches. Man, if I didn't take into the consideration the youth and the height and reach, I actually have Nicholas Dalby scoring slightly more fantasy points than Randy Brown. Now, the way I do it is I have multiple check marks, and I have a check mark of strict fantasy points, and then I have a different category where I combine the physicality of the fighters, their height and their reach, and the youth also. So when I don't take those into consideration, Nicholas Dalby looks like he's going to upset Randy Brown. But the moment I start taking into consideration the youth, the height, and the reach advantage for Randy Brown, it makes me lean more towards Randy Brown. But I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't be putting Randy Brown a part of a parlay just because I think Nicholas Dalby's very damn tough. Like, he's really tough. He only has shown a chink in the armor against Jesse Ronson in that fight where it was ultimately overturned because he popped. But he's a durable guy. You know that he's in shape. You know he can wrestle. You know he can strike. I have question marks about his chin to an extent. But I just think the way that this model is projecting this, I'm kind of going to stay away from this. And I don't hate the value on Nicholas Dalby, to be honest. But the size should be too much to overcome against Randy Brown. So I'm still picking Randy Brown here because of my check marks and of my categories. It still makes me pick Randy Brown. But in the strict fantasy points, Nicholas Dalby is edging him out. So you could do worse than 7,300 Nicholas Dalby. I think that he's a solid value this week. But I'm going to be picking Randy Brown to come through and come back and get a win in a very competitive 15-minute decision over Nicholas Dalby.
You know, one of the things that as you were talking there, where my mind immediately went to is, I want to see what Randy Brown wins via decision prop is at this week. Because I feel like, I might, I kind of like, especially when fighters have been around for a while, you always kind of wonder, hey, because Dalby, has been in, he spent a ton of time in the UFC octagon with all these decisions. But like, maybe I'll sweat it out a little bit. But I feel like, yes, if there are, even if it's like a minus 125, I don't mind getting a Randy Brown wins via decision here. Especially when you look at right now, just on the money line, he's a 2.5 to 1 betting favorite. One of the guys that you already mentioned on the show, talking about who he's been training with, 𝐼𝐠, who is minus 725 betting favorite. Holy cow. Taking on Andre Muniz at plus 450. 𝐼𝐠, 9,700 on DK, 6,500 for Muniz. This is actually the third time this fight has been booked. It was initially booked for June 15th of last year. Then it was booked for February the 1st. One of the issues was there was a visa issue for Muniz in this one. Muniz started 5-0 in the UFC, but he has lost back-to-back fights. His most recent fight, you got to go back to the end of 2023, a split decision there against Jung Young Park. We look at 𝐼𝐠. Last time we saw him, had a major step up in competition against Robert Whittaker. Did not go well for him, losing there in the opening round. It snapped a 7-fight winning streak for him. And one of the things of when you go to Tapology that really sticks out to you, of course, you have the Kansas fight against Muniz. But since 2023, 6 canceled fights for him.
Goodness gracious. I won't believe this fight till they step into the octagon. Andre Muniz broke onto the scene as such a devastating jiu-jitsu practitioner, and I could not believe my eyes when I saw him submit 𝗍𝐿 Souza. I still can't believe that happened because 𝗍𝐿, everything that I know, maybe I just listened to too many of the broadcasters hype up 𝗍𝐿 Souza of his jiu-jitsu accolades and his grappling credentials, but that blew my mind. I never thought that I would have seen Andre Muniz, who's a talented BJJ practitioner, submit 𝗍𝐿 Souza. But I have to tell you here, I am not holding Ikram Aliskerov's performance against Robert Whittaker against him at all. He's Robert Whittaker. The Reaper's the real deal. Former champ, the highest level that he's experienced inside the UFC and throughout his entire career. I'm not going to fault him for that performance at all. He'll learn a lot from that, even if he got knocked out. It's okay. In this matchup, man, I think this is going to be a wipeout. Truthfully, Jason, I think that Ikram Aliskerov is going to destroy Andre Muniz. We know Andre Muniz has awful striking. He will shoot takedowns like his life depends on it, though. So you know that he's going to go out there and he's going to wrestle and he's going to attempt to get you down and he's going to lean against you on the cage. So you better be in shape and you better be working on your cage defense. You better be working on your get-ups, your submission defense, and you better be able to go 15 minutes because he's a very, very tough customer. I just think this is a terrible matchup for Andre Muniz. if this fight stays on the feet, he's going to get butchered. You have 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿𝐴𝐠KAROV with 11.7 strikes attempted per minute. You have Andre Muniz at 3.94. Good God, that is a terrible, terrible difference between the two. When you look at the takedowns, 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV can take down Andre Muniz whenever he wants. He has the better wrestling here. His takedowns per 15 minutes sits at 1.82. With only 33% accuracy, that means he's attempting about 5.5 per 15 minutes, going up against the guy Muniz, who welcomes to be taken down because he's getting into his world, his jiu-jitsu world. So 35% takedown defense for Andre Muniz. When you look at takedown defense for 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV, he sits at 100%. So I just don't see how Andre Muniz is going to win this fight at all. Other than 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV following him to the mat with ground and pound, getting a little overzealous, overextending, getting caught in an armbar, similar to, how 𝗃𝐢𝐻 𝐳 broke his arm. Maybe, but I think that's such a small percentage that I just don't see it happening. 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV can sprawl and brawl. He's a part of the best team in the world right now, of American top team. He's training with Abus Magomedov, who has better wrestling than Andre Muniz. Definitely more dangerous on the feet than Andre Muniz. I just don't see how a guy who's training at Coconut Creek with the best jiu-jitsu, with the best BJJ black belts everywhere, is going to get submitted by Andre Muniz, and that is his only path to victory. So give me 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV via knockout in round 1. I think that he dominates him. And maybe he just deals with, the sprawl and brawl, lateral movement, and it happens in round 2. But I fully expect 𝐉𝐸𝐿 𝐿ASKAROV to get back into the win column and make a statement.
9,700 scary?
Yeah, yes and no. Like, the problem is, right, like, he could beat the hell out of Andre Muniz, and then Andre Muniz just, like, fall to his back and try to call him into his guard. That's kind of what I see happening, where Andre Muniz gets hurt, smart enough to kind of pull guard or bait him into his guard. And then it's a frustrating situation where the fight gets extended, or a frustrating situation where he gets hit with a lot of shots and then actually sits instead of gets knocked, instead of getting knocked down. 9,700. If I have the salary, I'm definitely playing him. It's just, do I have the salary? Because there aren't too many underdogs I'm in love with this week. But I fully expect him to get 100 points.
Next up, we got a flyweight matchup between Matt Schnell and Jimmy Flick. Schnell minus 290 betting favorite, plus 235 for Flick. Flick is 7,000 on DK, 9,200 for Schnell. Of course, both these guys have done the whole I'm retired. I guess I'll still fight again. No, not a shocker here. Last time we saw Matt Schnell, it was a second-round submission loss against Cody Durden. He's lost 3 straight, 4 of his last 5. He is 6-7 with 1 no contest in the UFC. All of his UFC losses are via stoppage. One of the stats that definitely sticks out to you is the strikes landed per minute. 4.39 for Schnell, 1.94 for Flick. Flick, the last time we saw him, this is why I feel like I already know you love Matt Schnell.
Yep.
It's based on the fact of the last time we saw Jimmy Flick, he lost to Nate Maness. And we all know how much you are the president of the Nate Maness fan club here.
That poor bastard. I don't know what he's ever done to me, but I am not a fan. But yeah, let me just say, this fight's crazy, Jason. You're completely correct. The salary on the volatile Matt Schnell, 9,200, is crazy. But you had to mention Nate Maness, and you already know that I'm going with Matt Schnell. I thought Nate Maness was going to knock the hell out of Jimmy Flick, and he found a way to burn me even more. The guy just found a way to burn me even more. But, to kind of piggyback off of what you mentioned, the strikes landed per minute, 4.39 for Matt Schnell versus 1.94 for Jimmy Flick. When you combine it with their accuracy, that translates to 11.25 for Matt Schnell in the strikes attempted per minute, and Jimmy Flick is still at 3.88. Good God, throw something out there. Jason Floyd throws more than 3.88 in a cage fight. So the striking defense is very, very poor for Jimmy Flick as well. 43% versus Matt Schnell sitting at 55%. Obviously, the chin issue for Matt Schnell is something that I'm worried about. Him getting submitted despite being a very talented jiu-jitsu practitioner, definitely a major worry. But the way I look at it is this matchup was too good to pass up, that Matt Schnell had to come out of retirement to get a win. Go off on a win. That's what I'm thinking. It is the most winnable fight that he has had in a very, very long time. I mean, you have Matt Schnell with 0.56 takedowns landed per 15 minutes. That translates to 1.4. I really don't want him taking Jimmy Flick down. I don't want him wrestling at all. I worry about that because Jimmy Flick is very dangerous, super sneaky with his setups, throws up tons of submission attempts to get you to bite on one, to counter and take advantage of a situation and threaten with a different one. Look to sweep, look to get on top, look to triangle choke you. I mean, the guy is very, very talented in the submission department. But like, you know, when you look at the wrestling of Jimmy Flick, it's like, okay, well, how's he going to get him down? Because I don't believe in his wrestling at all. I mean, he lands 1.55 takedowns per 15 minutes, 21% accuracy in his takedowns, which translates to attempting about 7.38 takedowns per 15 minutes. And going up against Matt Schnell, who has a 50% takedown defense, against better grapplers, against better wrestlers, I just don't see Jimmy Flick, you know, dealing with the striking well. Matt Schnell better be careful with his kicks because a caught kick could result in getting a takedown. Very, very easy way of getting taken down, which I would face palm immediately if he threw a kick, got caught, got taken down. But yeah, I think this is such a winnable matchup. The combined defense for Jimmy Flick, combining the striking defense and takedown defense, sits at 43% between two different disciplines. That is terrible. That's horrible. I think Jimmy Flick is going to get destroyed in this matchup. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but I think Matt Schnell is going to beat the shit out of Jimmy Flick. I mean, in the height plus reach department, Matt Schnell has 3 inches. The fantasy points dominates. The fantasy points plus the size differential dominates. The strength of schedule, he dominates them. I mean, you have Matt Schnell going up against strength of schedule with 65% win rate, 58% strength of his wins versus 52% strength of Jimmy Flick. I mean, it's just a completely different career. Matt Schnell has fought legitimate top-end competition, and I think that he smokes Jimmy Flick here. But there are moments when Matt Schnell panic taps. He gets put in a position, and he does not deal with adversity as well as he used to. But I think for this matchup, man, if he loses to Jimmy Flick, I will be very, very surprised and very disappointed. But it's a matchup I think you have to circle. If you're playing a 150 max, get at least 20% of Jimmy Flick, just because when he wins big. And I'm expecting Matt Schnell, the GPP priority for me at 9,200. So yeah, give me Matt Schnell to dominate and pick up a big win and hopefully retire on top.
You know that don't happen in the sport.
He better.
You know what's going to happen. He'll go out there, have a great performance, and be like, "Back, baby, I'm back."
Yeah, I know.
I mean, like, look, Schnell should win this fight. There's no question. But the one fear I have is Jimmy Flick catches him in some type of submission and he submits him. I mean, like, yes, this is probably a fight you have to have, and I don't think it's very rare when we talk about from a fantasy perspective that we say you got to have a flyweight fight. But Schnell should win. But, man, you ain't going to feel good.
No, I definitely don't feel good about it. I mean, the way I saw him panic tap against Cody Durden, the way I saw him panic tap against Brandon Royval. But what are we talking about here? I mean, like, I know that, in MMA math, Jimmy Flick beat Cody Durden like years ago and then suddenly retired. But Cody Durden has been on a resurgence and is a legitimate fighter for the division. Let's call it what it is. He is a legitimate fighter for the division. And Brandon Royval, title challenger, I mean, come on.
When Cody Durden made the switch from the ATT gym, which is the Lima Brother gym, in Georgia,
Yes.
just outside of Atlanta, and he made that switch down to Coconut Creek. You really saw the difference in his game. I mean, look, yeah, Snell, I don't – if you sat there and said, hey, I'm going to start my fantasy lineups with, maybe your combination is Matt Snell and Ian Machado Gary, I got no problem with that. But you also have to understand a lot of risk you are taking there. Probably something I may not look for an under 1.5. I'd maybe looking more inside a distance prop. I'll match now more than anything else. Maybe if I get a little bit better number than minus 290. Next up, we got a matchup that was supposed to take place a little over a month and a half ago between Chris Gutierrez and John Castaneda. Gutierrez right now sitting at a minus 130 betting favorite, plus 110 for Castaneda, who is 8,000 on DK, 8,200 over there on DraftKings for Chris Gutierrez. Of course, this matchup was supposed to be in March. Fight was pulled on fight day due to John Castaneda having an illness. Of course, Castaneda was supposed to fight the week before that against De Andrade. De Andrade pulled from the matchup, so just like a bad luck that John Castaneda had there. Gutierrez, 8 of his 12 UFC fights have gone the distance, last 4 going the distance. Of course, when you think of Chris Gutierrez, leg kicks is the thing that immediately comes to mind there. Of course, for Castaneda, last time we saw him was in June of last year. Decision loss against Daniel Marcos. He had previously won back-to-back fights. Also a guy that's primarily gone to decision in the UFC. 4 of his 7 UFC fights have gone the distance, and he will have a 4-inch reach advantage. But just because of the fighting style of both these guys, every time I think of Chris Gutierrez, all I can think of is, okay, he might leg kick the crap out of you, but is he going to get me 90 points?
Yeah, he's definitely not. I mean, the times of Chris Gutierrez to pick up crazy performances, they're very minimal, right? Like, Chris Gutierrez is a very good cerebral fighter, excellent leg kicks, more of a karate-based style. I have to tell you, I mean, like, the way he switches stances a lot, he chops calf kicks great. When he hurts people, he's very patient. So, there are a ton of clean wins a part of his career, but there's no overwhelming wins outside the Frankie Edgar knee, which, Frankie Edgar has been, out of the sport for some time now, and that was a terrible matchup for him. But seeing how he looked against Quang Le, like that on short notice, Quang Le went in there and gave him a fight, got in his face, crowded him. And when you crowd the kicker, you can just really minimize their damage to you because they're on the back foot. And when you stand at range, guess what Chris Gutierrez is going to do? He's going to kick the shit out of your legs. And then when you come at him, he's going to dart out of the way. He's going to switch stances, and he's going to be evasive. You are the bull. He's the matador, and he's just going to kind of dance around you. But when you crowd him and you put together blitzes and you go at him and you try to attempt to take him down, I mean, Cody Durden, when he took him down, he had his back for a while. That was some time ago. I think that this matchup is always a X Chris Gutierrez out, especially when he's a favorite at 8,200. I just don't see the upside for him. He could go out there and head kick John Castaneda and make me look silly, but I think the likelihood of that is pretty small. And I actually think that John Castaneda at 8,000, it's a fight that I don't love. But when you don't love a lot of underdogs, you got to do some things that you don't really feel the best about. I like John Castaneda to pull off the slight upset over Chris Gutierrez. And mainly it comes down to, the strikes attempted per minute, 8 strikes attempted for Chris Gutierrez, 9.34 for John Castaneda. It's the takedown department. It's the jiu-jitsu. It's the wrestling. You know that Chris Gutierrez doesn't wrestle. You know that he does not do anything offensively other than hunting low percentage submissions when he shouldn't be doing that at all. You have John Castaneda with 1.79 takedowns per 15 minutes with 35% takedown accuracy, translates to 5.11 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. And when you go up against the 71% defense of Chris Gutierrez, it's about 1.5 takedowns within the fight. So I think that the ability to land a takedown in a close and competitive round kind of puts a stamp on a round. I always tell our guys, right? Like when we compete, if it's close, you land a takedown. You land a takedown, that kind of gives that judge a little nudge to want to give you the round. Obviously, damage is the priority. Always land damaging shots. But if it's super competitive, it could go either way. Get that takedown, man. I really think that emphasizes the round for you. And that's what I see happening here. I think John Castaneda edges out Chris Gutierrez. He's 1 year younger, 1 inch in the height plus reach department for John Castaneda. So I like John Castaneda to pull off the slight upset over Chris Gutierrez. But in the fantasy points, it's a win for John Castaneda. The fantasy points plus the size advantage, it's a win. But the strength of schedule is something that we got to talk of because it's a little odd. I didn't expect Chris Gutierrez to have such a massive, crazy career. I mean, his entire career strength of schedule, the win percentage sits at 66%. He's fought some legitimate top-end competition, and within his wins, the win percentage is at 64% in comparison to 55% for John Castaneda. So, I mean, John Castaneda is talented enough to pull this off. His jiu-jitsu should be the difference maker. If he doesn't lace up his wrestling shoes or make this an MMA fight, he's going to get outpointed. It's plain and simple. But I'm going to take the discount with John Castaneda. I like that he's not on back-to-back weight cuts right now. I like the fact that we're going to see this fight unfold with a true fight camp. Even if it's the third or fourth time they're supposed to fight, give me John Castaneda to pull off the slight upset and beat Chris Gutierrez.
Of course, the concern is going to be because of what has happened, last month of whether we do ultimately see this thing here on Saturday. But, look, I think the pick for me is going to be, from a betting perspective, I would rather take Chris Gutierrez at minus 130, and I'd probably just look at taking him by decision just because you're probably going to get some plus money on that. But from a DFS perspective, I don't mind getting Castaneda if he makes this a complete mixed martial arts matchup. And so we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens in terms of that one. Next up, we got Damon Blackshear taking on 𝐼𝐸𝐳, who is a plus 315 betting underdog, minus 425 for Damon, who's 9,300 DK. And for 𝐼𝐸𝐳, he is 6,900 over on DraftKings. Of course, last time we've seen Damon, he's won back-to-back fights, both via stoppage against Cody Stamann and Cody Gibson. All of his UFC wins have come via stoppage. Should we know that 6 of his 7 career losses have come via decision. He's got a sizable reach advantage in this one of 6 inches. 𝐼𝐸𝐳, 6 of his 7 UFC fights have gone the distance. Only stoppage win came in 2022, which was a 47-second win against Kevin Croom.
Yeah, this fight's interesting, right? I think everybody's darling is clearly Damon Blackshear. How can you not like the guy? I mean, he's looked so damn good in the UFC. Outside of getting knocked out by Montel Jackson and losing a competitive and maybe arguable decision to Mario Batista, the guys look like an absolute force for the division. His hands have improved. It's his wrestling and his finishing ability on the mat with his crazy jiu-jitsu. I mean, I'm very impressed because this is the same guy that lost to Chris Moutinho. And Chris Moutinho, he's turned out a pretty solid career outside the UFC, but he's known for his loss to Sean O'Malley and losing his follow-up fight as well. So I think that, Damon Blackshear has improved dramatically throughout his career. Now, this fight, Jason, is pretty similar to the Randy Brown and Nicholas Dalby fight, and it's one I didn't expect. And now let me explain why. The strikes landed per minute for Damon Blackshear sit at 3.93 and 𝐼𝐸𝐳 at 2.64. But when you take into consideration their accuracy, you have Damon Blackshear at 8.54 strikes attempted per minute, with 𝐼𝐸𝐳 at 8.25. So not really much of a difference at all in the striking department from an attempted standpoint. Like, okay, that's super, super interesting. Now, when you take into consideration the wrestling, 1.89 takedowns landed per 15 minutes for Damon Blackshear, 1.99 for 𝐼𝐸𝐳. Okay, a little bit closer and a little sneaky. I didn't expect that. Takedowns attempted when you're combining it with their takedown accuracy, 5.25 for Damon Blackshear, 4.42 for 𝐼𝐸𝐳. I didn't expect this at all. But when you combine everything, against each other's defense and everything, you have 𝐉𝐤𝐳 outscoring Damon Blackshear, and it's by 4 points, which I didn't expect at all. But similar to the Randy Brown and Nicholas Dalby fight, when I take into consideration the size of the athletes, 3 years younger for Damon Blackshear, 11 inches in the height plus reach department. Good God, that number skyrockets, and now we have Damon Blackshear outscoring 𝐉𝐤𝐳 by 10 points. So, I mean, man, if Damon Blackshear doesn't utilize his size advantage and his reach, and he doesn't keep him at the end of his punches, this could be a very, very competitive fight because 𝐉𝐤𝐳 can wrestle pretty damn well. I mean, he's a champion in wrestling for a reason. His takedown defense sits at 70%. No, his takedown defense sits at 75%, and Damon Blackshear sits at 70%. Clearly, the strength of schedule of Damon Blackshear significantly outweighs 𝐉𝐤𝐳, 66% versus 60%. But man, if you take away the intangibles of the size advantage, this is a very, very close fight. And this is one where you could be sweating because 𝐉𝐤𝐳 could press Damon Blackshear and make him work and maybe get inside that reach. But at reach, at distance, Damon Blackshear should have his way in the striking department. And I also think that he may be unsuccessful in a lot of his takedown attempts, but the size of his limbs will allow him to wrap up the neck of 𝐉𝐤𝐳, work towards a finish, snap him down, put him in some situations he hasn't been in a very, very long time. But I was kind of surprised when I saw all my metrics pop out these numbers, Jason. But when I take the categories in consideration, it is still a Damon Blackshear win, but one that may have moments where it's a very, very competitive fight. And let's not forget what Cody Gibson did to Damon Blackshear early on in their bout. I mean, Damon Blackshear had a better performance against Cody Stamann than he did against Cody Gibson in round one. So Damon Blackshear is the pick. He gets it done. But I think that he has to deal with some adversity early on.
Yeah, I like Damon Blackshear in this matchup, even though I do like where 𝐉𝐤𝐳 trains when he's here in the United States. I mean, and I don't like, from a betting side, don't love the minus 425 price tag. That's if I was going to make a bet on this matchup. That to me is more prop game hunting in terms of this one. Next up, we got Malcolm Wellmaker taking on Cameron Saaiman. Saaiman minus 105, underdog minus 115 for Wellmaker. I mean, pretty much a pick 'em fight at this point here. Wellmaker 8,400 DK, and for Cameron, he is 7,800. UFC debut for Malcolm Wellmaker in this one. He did get a first round stoppage victory on Dana White's Contender Series back in August. 6 of his 8 pro wins are via stoppage. He'll have a 4-inch reach advantage in this one. Of course, Cameron Saaiman got to a great start in the UFC, started 3-0 in the UFC. However, he's lost back-to-back fights, and this will be his first fight in 13 months as the last time we saw him losing to Peyton Talbot.
Yeah, that Peyton Talbot fight was a terrible, terrible fight, and man, he looked awful in it. I mean, this is one where Cameron Saaiman was a guy that I loved betting on because he was a very active fighter. He broke onto the scene. He may have fought some low-level competition early on in the UFC, but he was exciting. You knew that he was dog tough, going to go out there and bite down on the mouthpiece. But to his own detriment, he kind of got into the habit of taking too many shots and, being able to survive and come from behind and just being tougher than a lot of his opponents. But Peyton Talbot beat the hell out of him. And I did not like seeing that at all. I mean, Cameron Wellmaker is a very, very talented prospect, who has had a very successful regional career in amateur in addition to pro. And within the one fight on the Contender Series, you saw that raw talent on full display. I mean, the strikes attempted in that bout, 12.19 versus Cameron Saaiman's average of 11.56 attempted. Cameron Saaiman's defense sitting at 51% in that matchup for Wellmaker on the Contender Series. His defense sits at 54%. Granted, it's a super small sample size, and this is a step up in competition for Wellmaker, right? UFC debut, octagon jitters. Show us what you're made of. I mean, Cameron Saaiman's been in there with some solid competition. Are you able to deal with a guy that's going to push you? I mean, Stephen Kozlow ragdolled Cameron Saaiman, and I remember Stephen Kozlow gave me like a winning lineup because he was the ultimate punt on the card, and I just played him because I expected him to get takedowns, and he ultimately lost the fight because Cameron Saaiman was the better striker. The Mana Martinez fight was a super weird performance, but Cameron Saaiman was the better striker in that one as well. I don't think that Cameron Saimon's the better striker against against Wellmaker here. Malcolm, I kept calling him Cameron. Malcolm Wellmaker. I think that Wellmaker hits too damn hard. I think he's crispy on the feet. He has an advantage in the height plus reach department of 6 inches. Saaiman is 6 years younger, but I think that we're going to see Wellmaker break onto the scene. I mean, the time off could benefit Cameron Saaiman. He could come out here with a much more well-rounded game, maybe test the wrestling of Wellmaker, maybe dirty box with him, get him into the later rounds, and try to really zap the energy of the UFC debutant. But I don't see that happening here. I think that Cameron Wellmaker gets it done. I think that he pulls it off here. And at 8,400, I think that he's a very solid play. If he knocks out Cameron Saaiman, holy moly, you really are like going to fast track your way, a part of some of the elite, because Peyton Talbot hit him with everything, and it took him a little bit to get out of there. But it was a very easy fight for Peyton Talbot in hindsight. The strength of schedule in the pros for Wellmaker, for Malcolm Wellmaker, is a little sketchy. I mean, he's in the beginning stages of his career. His total opponent's record sits at 44-35, which is a win percentage of 55% in comparison to Saimon's 61%. But a part of Saimon's wins, Saimon's at 56% and Wellmaker's at 55%. So very, very similar and comparable win strength between the two. I like what I saw from Wellmaker. I think the best is yet to come. And he may go out there and put on a show and kind of piggyback off that Peyton Talbot performance. So give me Wellmaker here at 8,400. But I don't blame anybody if they're a little hesitant of the UFC debutant and they want to go with the veteran in Cameron Saaiman.
Well, I think also something I think you have to point out is if you're Cameron, I mean, this could be maybe taking a more labored approach in there, just because of you start 3-0 in the UFC. Now you've lost back-to-back fights. I could very easily see that maybe there's a little bit of a less of taking those unnecessary risks that that you would take in previous matchups. So this does kind of feel like one of those matchups where the UFC matchmakers are maybe looking at Cameron as a guy to potentially cut to make room for fighters who are going to be on Dana White's Contender Series.
That's a good point, Jason.
Next up, we got a female matchup. You got Jacqueline taking on Polyana. Jacqueline Areno is a huge betting favorite in this one, minus 725, plus 450 for Viana. Jacqueline, 9,500 on DK. Viana is 6,700. Of course, when you look at Jacqueline, she's won 3 in a row. Something that, when we talk about women's MMA, and for the most part, statistically speaking, their fights that go to decision, go over 2.5 rounds. She's not done that. She's won 3 in a row, all via stoppage. Last 2 wins, first round armbar. We also talk about armbar from guard, always live in female MMA matchups. Those arm bars coming against Vanessa Demopoulos and Corey McKenna. When you look at Polyana Viana on the other side, 4-6 in the UFC. She's lost back-to-back fights via stoppage. But the crazy part about this is all 4 of her UFC wins, Pete, by first-round stoppage.
Yeah, she's definitely a very violent fighter. And she's one that has some sneaky pop in her hands and some fight-ending jiu-jitsu as well. I mean, Polyana Viana goes out there and she's live in round 1, but outside of that, man, I really just see her getting smoked majority of the time. I mean, Jacqueline Amorim seems absolutely legit to me. Like, I think that Amorim is so damn good, and I think that she is stronger in areas, where Polyana Viana is even very talented, but I also think, like, you could see Jacqueline Amorim go out there and exploit the holes significantly. Then you take into consideration Jacqueline Amorim is a part of my favorite gym out there, an American Top Team. And it's like, oh my God, it's the mecca of BJJ. It's the mecca of black belts littered throughout the entire mats, from women to men to just the talent in that room. People don't get it. And I toot the horn of American Top Team each and every day that we do this show. I think that Jacqueline Emery smokes Poliana Viana. Like, absolutely smokes. Like, you know how confident I was in Matt Schnell over Jimmy Flick? I'm even more confident in Jacqueline Emery to destroy Poliana Viana. In the strikes attempted per minute, this is the one worry where Poliana Viana is at 7.4 and Jacqueline Emery is at 5.86. She is working on her striking diligently at American Top Team. She's got good boxing coaches there, good Muay Thai coaches there. The striking defense of Poliana Viana is 53%. And so far for Jacqueline Emery, her striking defense is 63%. So despite Poliana Viana throwing more, I think that the metrics are going to be pretty damn similar. I think Emery's going to be even with Poliana Viana. And then the moment she attempts a takedown, it's over. It's over. She's going to dominate Poliana Viana en route to a ground and pound stoppage or en route to a submission finish. I mean, Poliana Viana's takedown defense sits at 38%. That is awful. Takedown accuracy of Jacqueline Emery is at 28%. She's still landing 1.78 takedowns per 15 minutes. Translates to attempting 6.35 in a 15-minute fight. That's bananas. She's probably, if this fight makes it this long, she's probably going to land 4 takedowns en route to a late stoppage. But I don't see Poliana Viana having the offensive wrestling to do anything for Jacqueline Emery. I don't think she can be able to stop the takedowns. And even if she takes down Jacqueline Emery, okay, now you get submitted. You know what I mean? It's like, it's no big deal. She'll welcome it. So I fully expect Jacqueline Emery to go out there and just put together an exceptional performance. My worry is if it stays standing and it's a kickboxing fight. We've seen Poliana Viana knock out several fighters, right? Like big power. Jinyu Frey is one. I think on the regional scene, Poliana Viana knocked out somebody, Amanda Ribas, like a long time ago. Like, man, that shocked me. But Jacqueline Emery in the fantasy points department, in a fantasy points plus size, in the strength of schedule even, Jacqueline Emery goes out there and dominates Poliana Viana en route to a finish. So give me Jacqueline Emery, and she's priced at a premium at $9,500. Do I like her or 𝐿𝐴 more? 𝐿𝐴, but only because I think that it just could be a higher score or it could happen quicker. But I love both of them equally. I like them a lot this week.
Yeah, I'm with you on Jacqueline. The money line at minus 725 is just crazy. I mean, I just, crazy, right? It's just, I can't touch that. I mean, I fully expect her to win, but if I'm lacing a bet on this matchup, it is not on that money line of minus 725 in terms of here. Next up, a guy that we talked about a little bit earlier on the show, Roberto Romero here, coming in here as a minus 115 favorite, taking on Timmy, who is at minus 105. He's 7,900 DK. Roberto is 8,300 for Timmy. 0-2 in the UFC, both decision losses. First time we see him since June of last year. Romero, we talked about losing that short notice fight against David Onama back in November of last year, but he had a great start in those opening 2 rounds.
Yes, he did. I mean, he hurt David Onama pretty significantly, and broke onto the scene in that first round, and it was like, man, this is going to be a massive upset. But David Onama proved his toughness, turned the tide, hurt him. But I'll tell you what, man, Romero is dog tough. I was very, very pleased with the toughness of Roberto Romero to go 15 minutes after being hurt so bad in that bout, after being on, very, very short notice, having the gas tank to go 15 minutes. This kid's good. I think the kid's a lot better than what his record is suggesting. And I also think that he's very dangerous on the regional scene. If you watch him, his hands, they have a ton of sneaky pop. And David Onama found that out pretty quickly, right? But you wouldn't see that on his record because he has some losses mixed in there. He has a pretty, average record in the UFC, breaking into the UFC, being 8-4 overall, expectations are a little low. But the power this kid possesses, I mean, he really works on his boxing. And regionally, the best part of him is his wrestling. He pushes a tremendous pace with his wrestling. He'll go out there and he'll heavy combinations into his takedown attempts, getting on top of people inside their guard, landing heavy ground and pound. I am very interested and excited to see Romero here because my algorithm and my model, it doesn't give Romero justice because he didn't attempt any takedowns in the fight against David Onama. And for me, that's his best path to victory in all of his matchups is that crazy pace. And I know that he's part of Team Oyama, which is a very, very high-level gym, one where they're always in great shape, good wrestling. And, if I look at the metrics, he's already in that one matchup against David Onama. He attempts 10.48 strikes per minute, whereas 𝗵𝐾 attempts 7.5. I mean, 𝗵𝐾's striking defense sits at 60% within his small sample size. 43% for Romero, which is bad, but that's because David Onama is just an exceptional fighter. My model is I feel like it's falsely wanting to get behind 𝗵𝐾 just because of the debut of Romero, but I don't think it's doing it justice at all because I really think that, despite 𝗵𝐾 having a 71% takedown defense rating, I think that can be tested by 5+ takedowns that Romero will attempt because when I watch him fight, man, that's what he does. He goes heavy punches into takedown attempts. I think that he's the better wrestler here. 𝗵𝐾 attempts a ton of takedowns as well, 27% in the takedown accuracy rating for 𝗵𝐾. And I don't see that. I don't see him ragdolling Roberto Romero here at all. I mean, 66% for his takedown defense for Romero. It's got to be about 1.25 takedowns per 15 minutes. I just don't see my model. I think is projecting this wrong personally because of how that first fight went. So I'm going to stray away from the model on this one, and I'm going to go with the fight film that I watched and how I know Roberto Romero's been training really hard, working on his wrestling, working on his boxing. I think he's prepared for this bout. I think that he beats 𝗵𝐾. Whenever you lose to certain fighters, you kind of lose that trust for me. And I'm not a big fan over Lucas Almeida. And Lucas Almeida dropped 𝗵𝐾, had him shooting for his life, and hurt him, and probably should have 2 knockdowns in that matchup, even though he was granted only 1. I thought 𝗵𝐾 looked terrible in that bout. And I think that, Lucas Almeida hits hard, but Roberto Romero hits equally as hard, and the threat of the takedown could open up even more. So, guess what, Jason? I'm going Roberto Romero here as a slight favorite over 𝗵𝐾.
Yeah, I like Roberto Romero. One of the things I'll tell you about, one of the things I've heard about Team Oyama is they are very old school in their approach.
Yep.
And I guess the best way to put it is no easy days in the gym.
Yeah.
I mean, I've heard stories. They sparring is it's like fight day.
Yeah,
is a term
that
has been approached to me, and and obviously that depends on various coaches are going to have various ideas, but Colin Oyama is very old school in terms of his approach of getting his fighters ready. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got Chelsea Chandler taking on Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards a -280 betting fair, +230 for Chandler, who's 7,200 on DK. Edwards is 9,000. Chelsea Chandler, 2-2 in the UFC. Her last 3 fights have gone the distance, coming off a decision loss back in August against Gianna Santos. When you look at Edwards, 5-4 in the UFC. 8 of her 9 fights in the promotion have gone the distance, of course. But her last win was a 3rd-round submission win. One of the things to note about her, and this is something we're going to pay attention to on Friday, she has missed weight in 3 of her last 5 matchups. Her last matchup, missing weight by 3 pounds. But, Pete, there are just some things you can never get out of your brain.
Bro, I already know what you're going to say. Say it, please.
Was her first UFC fight
No, she beat the hell out of Yulia Stolyarenko and gave us a false sense of who she was. And then she put on those running shoes against Norma Dumont, and she looked like the T-Rex in Jurassic Park was chasing her. And she beelined to the opposite end of the cage like she was terrified. I've never seen this, Jason. I've seen fighters run around in a circle.
Yeah.
I've never seen this in my life.
I mean, literally turned her back and said, "It's sprinting time."
I'm surprised the referee didn't stop it, because I think if I was reffing, I would have. What the hell was that? You're turning your back against your opponent, and I was surprised she didn't jump out of the cage and ran through the crowd and ran back to the locker room.
She'll never get away from that. Like, I guarantee you, I bet you if I go into gifts in my phone and you do that, so, like when you're texting someone, if you have an iPhone, and if I probably text Chelsea Chandler, I bet you that pops up of her running around the cage.
100%. And it's well deserved, because guess what, Jason? It's the most ridiculous shit I've ever seen in my life. It shouldn't happen. You're a trained professional fighter. What is that? What is that? I mean, she got hit by Norma Dumont and was terrified. And she talked so much shit at the press conference too. I remember they were having a little back and forth. And then like Chelsea Chandler really kind of fed into that like 209 type of mentality. Yeah. And Norma Dumont was like, there's levels to this game. And she showed her. But I mean, that sums up my trust towards Chelsea Chandler. It's non-existent. I don't trust the girl at all. I mean, I think there are certain matchups where in hindsight, it's like, okay, yeah, like she can pull off a win. She can sneak out a win over Nunes. But Nunes has proven that she isn't anything all that great either. Yana Santos, there was no way she was beating Yana Santos. The cage push professional, Yana Santos, the better wrestling, the more physical. Chelsea Chandler, she misses weight, man. She misses weight like crazy. Like, imagine being a fight promotion, right? And my dad's putting on a show in Smithfield, Rhode Island, May 18th. If you are in the area, come check it out. But imagine being a promoter and paying somebody 30, 40, 50 grand for them to miss weight 3 times, for them to beeline in the cage and run away from their opponent. Like, there's no way. I'm surprised this girl hasn't been cut. I have to tell you. There are actual true fighting professionals out there who try hard and take pride in weight cutting, take pride in making weight, take pride in putting on a performance. Chelsea Chandler, to me, has lost all my trust. And the issue is she's going up against a fighter in Jocelyn Edwards, who has also missed weight and has had struggles with the scale. So it's like maybe the UFC put these 2 weight missers together and says, I don't care. You guys fight, we're going to cut you both. Maybe that's what happens. Jocelyn Edwards, though, is definitely the better striker here. She attempts 8.6 strikes per minute, whereas Chelsea Chandler attempts 7.84. The wrestling advantage should be in Jocelyn Edwards' favor here, despite not being the most she's kind of unsuspecting in the physicality department, but she has very, very good wrestling, and her takedown defense has been improving. Jocelyn Edwards has landed 1.23 takedowns per 15 minutes with 39% accuracy. It's about 3 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. You have Chelsea Chandler on the opposite side, 0.91 takedowns per 15 minutes against Edwards' 60% takedown defense, which is about 1.5 takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. I actually said that wrong. Let me correct myself. 1.23 takedowns per 15 minutes for Jocelyn Edwards against 33% takedown defense for Chelsea Chandler. That sounds better. And then 0.91 takedowns per 15 minutes for Chelsea Chandler against 61% takedown defense of Jocelyn Edwards. So, I mean, in all areas, in the striking, in the wrestling, in the activity, in the just UFC experience, I have Jocelyn Edwards beating Chelsea Chandler in the fantasy points, taking the size advantage as well. 5 years younger than Chelsea Chandler, 2 inches in the height plus reach department. And then the strength of schedule is something that was a little interesting. I noticed it with several fighters. The South American regional scene, like the Brazilian scene, and like it's terrible. The Central America, South America regional scene, the records on some of these fighters, it's absolutely atrocious. So there are a lot of poor records a part of Jocelyn Edwards' career. So it's a slight advantage in the strength of schedule department for Chelsea Chandler from a win percentage and strength of schedule standpoint. But I think Edwards wins this fight, man. I'm not picking Chelsea Chandler. It's women's MMA. I get it. Jocelyn Edwards beats Chelsea Chandler, and then they cut them both, and I'm okay with it.
I would just rather spend up $200 to get the match now.
Yeah, exactly. 9,000? No.
Yeah. I mean, look, I think Jocelyn Edwards should win this matchup. But to me, when you're talking about, fancy score upside and, hey, we're trying to get to 650, 700 points, I'd rather get to Matt Schnell in that situation. Then our final matchup, I see one place it's always the first fight of the night, another place it's always like the middle of the card. We'll see also where it ends up. Evan Elder, of course, getting a new opponent here. Taking on 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜. Evan Elder right now a minus 230 betting favorite, plus 190 for Young. We don't have a DraftKings price point here for 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 yet. Elder is at 9,400. Evan Elder's won back-to-back fights after starting 0-2 in the UFC. Last time we saw him was back in July, getting that submission win against Darius Flowers. Of course, I think everyone knows why we've had the change here in terms of his opponent being released by the UFC over the last 36 hours or so. We look at 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜. This will be the UFC debut for him. He is coming off a win in FAC, which is a promotion fighting alliance. It was James Krause's promotion a couple years ago, but obviously James Krause no longer involved in that. He did compete on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2024, Pete, but he did lose that matchup.
Yeah, I was just looking in our Discord. So if you guys go into the description below of our videos, you can join our Discord below where we talk fights all week long, every single day. I mean, we're talking fights that are 6 months from now, 3 months from now. And Leo posted the photo that we were talking about of Dumont and Chandler. So that's when you were talking. I was chuckling. And look at there is Chelsea Chandler running like crazy right now away from Norma Dumont. So yeah, I mean, that photo's hilarious. Now, Evan Elder was supposed to fight Khamzat, and Khamzat was pulled off the card for some awful stuff. And, Khamzat was a guy that I was looking towards because of the volume that he put on the Contender Series. Now, when he's off the card, and rightfully so, and out of the promotion, thank goodness, you have Evan Elder here going up against 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜, and I was very surprised that the line wasn't wider. I mean, like, Evan Elder's had a full camp. 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 stepping in on short notice. 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 had a Contender Series fight a while ago. Okay. I mean, if I go off that small sample size and I compare their fights, 10.24 strikes attempted for Evan Elder, 7.6 for 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜, not bad at all. The striking defense for 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 was awful in that bout, against Quinton Salkill, but 44%, 44% is pretty bad. So 44% is something that I definitely don't like seeing. I mean, Quinton Salkill went out there and styled on him, landed 9 takedowns, and 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 just got completely murked in that matchup. So the better striker is going to be Evan Elder. He has 57% striking defense. When you go and you look at the offensive wrestling, personally, I think it's one of Evan Elder's best attributes is the sneaky way that he can get takedowns. He gets that respect with his hands, and then he shoots takedowns underneath you. 0.63 takedowns landed per 15 minutes at 20% accuracy, pretty poor accuracy, but translates to about 3+ takedowns attempted per 15 minutes. I think that he's got 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 covered here, and I don't understand why the line isn't wider. I mean, like, I expected 4 or 500, minus 4 or 500 for Evan Elder, and it might approach that. 𝐃𝐤𝐬𝐬𝐜 is solid, but I mean, Evan Elder is pretty talented and a fighter that I really like getting behind. Height and reach advantage for Evan Elder, 3 inches. In the fantasy points, I have him outscoring them. In the fantasy points plus size discrepancy, I have him outscoring them. The strength of schedule was interesting, Jason. And I don't know if you expected this, but Evan Elder and Gage Young have two of the worst strength of schedules on the entire card. Elder's entire competition, 77 wins and 72 defeats, sits at 51% in the strength of schedule department in comparison to Gage Young's 81 wins and 72 defeats, which sits at 52%. So slight advantage for Gage Young. Didn't really expect that at all. When you look at the strength of their wins, 46% for Evan Elder and 48% for Gage Young. So it's like, damn, neither one of these guys have beaten really talented competition, or the people that they've beaten have had horrible, horrible records. So, because of the strength of schedule, maybe it made me pause a little bit more than pre-data, but I still think Evan Elder should coast here. I think that he gets this win. I think that he does pretty damn well, and he should score decently well as well because of his wrestling and striking upside against a guy on short notice. So 9,400 though, it's not like you're getting him at a significant discount. Plenty of 9,000 options to go around from, but I definitely like him more than Jocelyn Edwards. But I still like Matt Schnell the most. So give me Matt Schnell at 9,200, but I will be picking Evan Elder to pull off this victory over Gage Young.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're Gage Young, you got to take this opportunity. I mean,
yeah,
because who knows if you might be waiting for the Contender Series to get another chance on Contender Series, so you got to take advantage of this opportunity. But yeah, I'm like you, I like Elder in this position. Before we get into questions here, we'll get our straight up fight picks here. Main event, I'll go Ian Machado Gary.
Yeah, Ian Gary.
Co-main event, Zhang Ming Yang.
Yeah, Zhang Ming Yang for me as well.
I would go Onama.
Onama.
Give me underdog number 1 and Magomedov.
Yeah, Magomedov for me.
Brown.
Randy Brown.
Aliskerov. Schnell. I have a feeling we're gonna be different on this one. I'm gonna go Gutierrez.
Yeah, I'm gonna be different. I'm gonna go John Castaneda.
Give me Damon.
Yep, Damon Blackshear.
I would go Wellmaker, but it's kind of nervous about being the UFC debut.
Yeah, a little nervous about that, but I'll go Wellmaker here.
I'll go Amarim.
Jacqueline Amarim.
I'll go Romero.
Roberto Romero.
Edwards.
Jocelyn Edwards.
And Elder.
Evan Elder.
Get some questions here from Discord that have come in here today. First up, will main event stack work for cash? I say no, but I'm not against it though. But I feel like for that to work, you need a Machado Gary win with grappling, but also volume striking from Prates.
I don't think Prates is a 25-minute fighter, and I'm a big fighting nerds guy. Yeah. So, I mean, if you look at, in the second round victories, it's not like he's putting out crazy volume. I mean, 55 against Jing Liang, 37 against Trevin Giles. And don't forget, he struggled in that Trevin Giles fight until that knockout occurred. I don't see how a stack works this week, truthfully. I just think there are underdogs that are going to come through. Prates stacked with Ian Gary is not something that I will be doing, but I think there's better weeks to do that.
Let's see here. Next up, value plays under 8K and a core 3 on DraftKings. I think if I'm talking about a core 3 on DraftKings, I think it starts with the Ian Machado Gary right from the start. That to me would be number 1. Then I would probably look to pairing him with Matt Schnell just because of the high fantasy score upside. And then the third one, and this is more of trying to find a little bit of salary relief here, Roberto Romero.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because that's exactly what I did. He's very good. My algorithm likes what Kawamba can bring to the table as an underdog, but I don't think it's projecting correctly for Roberto Romero's wrestling. So I think I will pivot, though. I won't give the same pick for the third. I think I'll go Abus Magomedov as the dog that we need to kind of get some salary savings. And he has that wrestling upside coming off of back-to-back excellent performances where he showcased 10 takedowns between the two of them, 6 against 𝗿𝐼𝐠𝐲 Alves, 4 against Bruno Ferreira.
And I'll say this, in terms of value plays underneath AK, there's not a lot I like underneath AK.
Yeah.
That you feel, I mean, like there's ones you can look at and say, hey, I can see the path to 80, 90, 100 points, but I think the one that I 𝗿𝐵 would probably be the one that I would have the most confidence in.
Yep.
Castaneda's at 8,000. If you can get the grappling going, maybe that works out well for you. But man, outside of that, there's just not a lot I like down there.
I think that's why it's making me get to John Castaneda, because of his grappling upside. Because we know that Gutierrez can be taken down. He can be controlled. He can have his back taken. He can make stupid boneheaded decisions for going for crazy low percentage leg locks and all that stuff when he's not a leg lock specialist. And we've seen John Castaneda display excellent submission skills where he submitted Miles Johns. So, I mean, people just will avoid the fight because it has Chris Gutierrez. And if no underdogs come through and Castaneda puts the correct game plan together, I'm going to be on John Castaneda in hopes that that's what happens.
Mentioned there's a couple questions here. Some of these questions we'll answer in Discord because they're a little bit lengthy here. What are safe plays for cash and strategies for cash lines for this card? One of the things in terms of cash is I really try to stay away from kind of like those boom bust type plays, even though Snell to me is always going to be one of those guys. Yeah, that to me is where I'm probably looking at someone like Machado Gary, maybe a David Onama, 𝐼𝐠𝐲, even though the price point's really crazy. To me, cash, I'm trying to find some safer plays to be able to develop that line. That's just kind of the way that I do it there.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'm not a big cash guy, but trying to limit having fighters that get finished. I mean, it's really what it is, right? Like, even in a loss, you want like a Nicholas Dalby or a Haley Alatang that can survive 15 minutes and put up some attempts and put up some volume and hopes that it's a competitive matchup and that they get the nod. But, not ones where they get wiped out in round one and you're left with single digits. So definitely limit your volatility in cash games.
Best leverage play. Obviously, we don't have ownership ranking and projections at this point. The name that stuck out to me as a leverage play, just because I don't think he's going to have a lot of ownership. If he wins, likely it's going to be decision. Nicholas Dalby.
Yeah, I mean, he likes to spoil the party a lot, right? Like he's done it time and time again. I think personally, the leverage play that is very, very interesting might belong in the 𝗏𝐾𝐬𝐿 and David Onama fight, where we don't have the projections, but I don't anticipate that. I mean, the wrestling upside is massive for David Onama. But one way or another, I mean, like at 8,800 or 8,900, whatever the hell he is, he's at that weird price point where people are either going to spend up or spend down. 8,800, it's kind of like a weird spot.
Rank in the 9K options. We got 7 fighters over 9K this week.
Great.
As I look at it, I would probably go Schnell 1. Amorim 2, 𝐼𝐠𝐲 3, Ming Yang 4, Elder 5, Blackshear 6, Edwards 7.
Yeah, so I got 𝐼𝐠𝐲 1, Ming Yang 2, Schnell 3, Amorim 4, Blackshear 5, Elder 6, Edwards 7.
Yeah. We're not Josh Snellers fans this week.
No. I mean, I'm a fan of her, but not for DFS.
Best takedown upside. I look at Ian Gary. I look at John Castaneda.
Let me see what my model likes. My model has
Onama could be an interesting one.
Takedowns. Say again?
Onama could be an interesting one.
Yeah, my highest takedowns landed. I have Jacqueline Amarim.
Okay.
3.94. My worry though is that 1 is all it takes. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Go to Sam. Questions here. Best top plays. I look at Schnell and Gary, especially Gary, the 25-minute nature of that.
Yeah.
Just what he could do there. Those would be my top 2.
Yeah, I like Ian Gary a lot. It's crazy we're saying Schnell. You know what I mean? But I agree. I think that he's in a completely different class than Jimmy Flick. But it's crazy though because styles make fights, and I think this style is perfect for Matt Schnell to really capitalize on and style on him. I think he's going to beat the hell out of Jimmy Flick.
But you want to talk about Sam's next question, live dogs. Jimmy Flick may be a live dog.
Isn't that weird though? Because that's why I said it's a fight that you have to have. It's a true GPP fight because the submission attempts we've seen in Panic Tap. What's the motivation like? Both of these guys have retired. They've retired. They've had 1 foot out, 2 feet out. Their whole body's out. They've been out of the sport. You know what I mean? So it's like, what's the motivation like? And what's the training situation like? But live dog for sure. I think that 𝐉𝐸₫ complete live dog, and one that I'm picking straight up, so it's not even like it's a small percentage chance. The 2 that I think are very unpopular are ones that if they get inside the reach, Nicholas Dalby can pull this off via decision, and so can 𝐒𝐢𝐬𝐬𝐜𝐸 𝐿atang. But they have massive, massive reach disadvantages, ones where they have to have the correct game plan for.
Next up, top inside the difference fighters. Give me Ming Yang.
Yeah.
𝐿𝐸𝐿𝐴𝐸𝐿.
Yep.
Schnell.
Yeah.
Amarim.
Yeah.
Those would be the top ones for me.
Bro, I can't wait to see what Sam's freaking over-under is at or whatever, because it's gotta be juicy.
Yeah. Best decision odds fighters. These are just fights I think that have a high probability of going the distance. Edwards Chandler.
Yep.
I would say Blackshear, 𝐿atang 𝐿𝐸, Castaneda Gutierrez, Brown Dalby.
Jason's on the money.
𝗃𝐄 𝐬𝐽.
I think that Elder and Gage Young too. That's one that can definitely go 15 minutes.
Top pump plays. Anthony Smith.
Ew. I just threw up in my mouth. I like Anthony Smith, but I don't disagree with you. I could throw up and still agree.
Look, Anthony Smith could very easily go out there and get you 5 points, but I could see him weathering an early storm, and we find out that Ming Yang has got a 5-round gas tank or 5-minute gas tank.
I was going to say, hey, you got a 5-round gas tank? He's winning this shit. This whole bottom section is awful. Oh my God. Is it usually this ugly down here?
Look, it's probably in all reality, I think you're looking Anthony Smith, Jimmy Flick.
Good God.
If after that, it's,
Then you're just playing the women's MMA card. That's it. You know what I mean?
You're playing off our regard. Take down king and queen.
I see what you did there.
Amarim.
Yep.
Take
down king, huh? That's what they want?
I think it's Gary.
I think it's Gary too.
Top optimal plays. I don't want to keep sounding like a broken record here, but Gary, just because I just don't have that faith in Prates. Schnell, Aliskerov, Amarim.
We are aligned this week.
Yeah. That kind of, top captains, MVPs, all the ones I just mentioned.
Hey, Jason, did you have a good time in the captain contest the other week? Didn't you tell me you did decent on that?
Oh, I was in second until the final fight. Yeah.
What was it again?
Oh man, I'll have to look at what one lineup was. But basically, who did I? It was literally I went from like second to 31st, and it was one fighter that if I would have had 𝗵𝐻𝐿 as opposed to 𝗵𝐻𝐸, I would have, if not won the contest, I would have been top 5. To me, this is what I think about those captain contests is, and this is just me, I'm trying to get away from the massive ownership as captains.
Yeah. It's true.
I'm trying to pull it up right now, what I had here. Oh, we get into Sam's as I pull it up here. Jason and Pete special. If Elder Young is a first fight, it's a pass for me most likely, just because I like the other 9,000 options way more.
Agreed. I like him more for parlays. That's kind of crazy that he's at such an affordable line. It doesn't make any damn sense to me.
Yeah. Road to the Mansion series 6.5. I think you got to
over, man.
Yeah, I go over. Yeah.
Minus
so what,
230.
So what I had, my captain, I had Dom Reyes as my captain.
Oh, damn.
I had Yair, Paddy Pimblett, Chase Hooper, who somehow got 104 points, Julian Erosa, and Dan Ige. The winning lineup, which was
that lineup is nasty.
Was 50 points ahead of me. They had Paddy, Volk. Paddy was their captain. Volk, Dom Reyes, Hooper, Erosa, and 𝗵𝐻𝐿.
What did Volk end up getting? 100 plus, right?
101.94.
Such annoying. So annoying. The 5-round fights are just broken.
Yeah, 168 significant strikes, a takedown, winner by decision, 78 control time.
I definitely watched that fight not thinking he got 100. But
No, I did not think that at all with that as well. But yeah, it was right when I saw where I was at heading into the main event. Like I knew I was. I was like, I was sitting there in the third round going, Volk, finish this thing. Finish it.
Yeah.
Just finish it right now.
You needed that. I mean, third round is the worst thing to have happen in a 25-minute fight. We talk about it all the time. But you knew the ownership. You created a unique lineup. But the ownership for Volk, the ownership for Diego Lopez. I mean,
yeah. To me, I tend to have a hard time in building those captain contests.
Yeah.
Just because of look, think about it from this week. Ian Gary's probably going to be massively owned as a captain. So if I'm single bulleting in one of those contests, I'm getting away from that. I'll put Ian Gary in just a utility spot. But just sitting there and thinking I'd probably take a shot on Castaneda, not as a captain. I feel like Schnell's going to have ownership. I mean, I hate to get there. Aliskerov off the price tag would scare me as a captain.
Yeah, he's got to be like freaking 20,000.
I tell you what, man. Magomedov would get some takedowns.
I know. I was literally thinking of that as the
underdog. Think he would be the guy that I would sit there and try to go as a sneaky captain, just because he's not going to have high ownership.
You're right, exactly.
That to me is. But
I always try to go cheap in the captain spot, but cheap with upside, so I can fill in with the studs.
Yeah, I mean, because when I was developing my line for 314, the mindset was, okay, I really felt Dom Reyes wins. He's knocking him out. I didn't necessarily think it'd be the first round. I thought it might be the second round. So I thought might be able get some points there. But I mean, look, there were some massive scores at 314. I mean, there were some massive scores. And also another thing you have to think about is this is the bigger cage. So kind of like a pay-per-view event. You're not the Apex where it's that small cage, bigger cage. Obviously more room for the wrestler to work with in terms of that too. Some depending on what's your thought process. Some people say the bigger cage favors a striker.
I think so. I think it favors the striker tremendously. More utilization of footwork, space to have lateral movement. Apex cage, clearly they collide, in the middle. You press them into the cage, you can get your takedowns a lot easier. But I will tell you, the one thing that I found interesting, right, is every time that they're in front of a live crowd, let's call the Apex not a live crowd. Let's act like that's like the Ultimate Fighter, right?
It's a warehouse.
Yeah, when they're not in the warehouse, I think there's a strategy out there of stacking the prelims because you know it.
Yeah.
I say it every time. The prelims set the tone for the night. And you know that there's a lot of finishes early on in the night. And then as you start approaching the main event and, fighters start fighting a little bit more careful and strategic, there's a world out there where I want to see what the fight order is. And then I will make some decisions. But, stacking the prelims or, getting most of your lineup a part of the prelims is definitely a nice strategy.
Oh, it's an excellent strategy to go with just because, especially a lot of people are just kind of developing lineups. They're going to look at those main card, those fighters that they know. Sometimes it's, if you can have that understanding of some fighters that people don't know, that's where maybe you can take advantage of it. Of course, we're going to try to do this show earlier in the week. There may be some Mondays, maybe myself or Pete aren't able to do it, but that is a plan going forward here with the Fight HQ podcast. Of course, if you got any questions, you can line those up in the YouTube chat. Also, you can do that over our Discord channel. We got that DraftKings contest as well. Also, don't forget, we got the offer from Stochastic. Get 15% off any MMA subscription that they do offer. All you got to do is use a promo code FightHQ to take advantage of that. Of course, links for that are in the description below. So if you do got any questions, I'm sure some things will change as the week goes on. Of course, we'll see with the weigh-ins. If we do end up losing any fights on this card, which, sometimes it definitely does happen. But that is going to do it for this episode of Fight HQ. We will talk to you next week as we'll be getting ready for, it's a fight night card. I know it's a fight night card because the pay-per-view's, I want to say the week later. There. By the way, there is a BKFC event here in the Tampa Bay area next Friday, but I'll be out of town, so I won't be able to. I'll be out of town.
Sandhagen versus Figueiredo next week.
Oh, that's the Iowa card.
Interesting.
Yeah, Jeremy Stevens is on that card against. Can't recall what it is, but yeah, that's the card in Des Moines, Iowa.
Jeremy Stevens is against Mason Jones.
Yeah,
and you got Rainer de Ritter against Bo Nickel.
Yeah, Jeremy Stevens just signed a one-fight deal in terms of that one. So,
the weirdest signing ever? I don't get it.
Oh, I can tell you what it is.
What?
He's from Iowa. It's about selling tickets, baby.
Oh, shit. You're right. Okay.
Come on, man.
This is why we got Jason. I don't know where these people are from, Jason. Yeah, I know he's from Iowa. He's from Des Moines, Iowa. I know that. I don't know which state these guys are from.
Come on. You
wow.
Don't
good for him. Maybe that's cool. That's actually cool. I like that.
Yeah, one fight deal. He's going to see where, obviously he's been doing really well in BKFC.
Yeah.
It's, but really that card to me is about Bo Nickel because, obviously, size will step up in competition from who,
I think it's an easy-ass matchup for him. Rainer de Ritter ain't going to take him down. Are we kidding me? Are you kidding me? Is anybody kidding me? It ain't going to happen. So, leg lock boy, jiu-jitsu boy. Dude, listen, when you train and you train with wrestlers and then you train with jiu-jitsu practitioners, the jiu-jitsu practitioners attempting to take you down, it's not Nicky Rod, okay? It's not Gordon Ryan. It's like, it can't even compare. You can't compare jiu-jitsu practitioners taking you down to wrestling. This is going to be what the Paul Craig matchup should have been. I think I think that he just dominates.
Yeah. And also interesting to kind of see if Nickel gets the win, how much he's fast tracked a little bit. Reportedly Dragons 𝐿 has got an injury. That is going to delay his next title matchup. There is Kyle Barallo is saying that Khamzat has accepted.
I love it.
I think there's a lot of rumblings out there. A big fight is on the verge of being announced.
Topuria Islam Makhachev, is that what you're thinking?
Nope.
What is it?
Jones Aspinall.
Hey, I don't even care about it anymore. It ain't gonna happen. I don't even care. Go away, Jones. Just go away.
Wow,
Let Aspinall.
God, you must be voting in the uncrowned men's pound for pound rankings that has John Jones number 7.
I saw that. That makes no sense. Nobody likes him. I don't understand that though. 𝐿𝐶 Makhachev being in top 1, number 1, number 2. I get it. John Jones. How is he not number 1 though? He's done it a part of multiple weight classes for 15 years.
I had a friend come up to me and he goes, I know you know your MMA stuff. He goes, and he saw the part of the show and he goes, come on, Jones no worse than 2, right? I go, yeah, it's Islam, John Jones. They're 1, 2.
Yeah.
The fact that Merab was 3, I was kind of blown away by. I just said, I go, here's my biggest case for John Jones. It's a pound for pound list. He's 1 in 2 weight classes.
Yeah, I know. It makes no sense. He should have never left 1.
Look, I want to see Islam and Topuria. I think that'd be a very interesting matchup. I don't think there'd be a huge size difference between the two. I really don't.
No, Topuria's a big guy. He's been talking about how much he had to cut to make 45. I would really like that fight. I like where the division's at right now. I want 𝐿𝐶 Makhachev to stay at 55. Ton of different fights that I want to see him compete with, but obviously a lot of welterweight, conditions. I wonder what happens in that situation.
I will say this: the moment 𝐿𝐶 Makhachev says he's going to 170, I expect within about 10 minutes we got a tweet from Usman Nurmagomedov demanding his release from the PFL.
Yeah.
I think it's only a matter of time before Usman Nurmagomedov's in the UFC, 𝗵𝐺 Mix is in the UFC, Johnny Edwin's in the UFC. Yeah.
I'm fine with it. This is what the UFC should be. Get the best talent there. That's exactly what it should be.
It's amazing. MMA Junkie releases an interview where Dakota's like, they haven't offered me a fight. Maybe I'll fight by the end of the year. And magically, all of a sudden, now she's going to fight in July.
I saw that. Yeah. Super weird.
Bro. I just had to laugh when they put this little teaser out there and Johnny Edwin goes, send bout agreement and location.
Yeah.
Which was clearly his way of saying, quit the BS. Quit the BS.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yep.
God, the guy, one of the guys I feel the worst for is Corey Anderson. It's going to be
feel bad for
16 to 17 months between fights for him, and he's healthy.
Sergio Pettis has been on the shelf for a while too. Everybody. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, at the end of the day, we just want to see the best fight the best, and we'll see what happens there. But we'll be back next week to get you ready for UFC Iowa and everything else going on in the world of MMA. Of course, be sure to hit that thumbs up on the video if you're watching us on YouTube, or be sure to hit that rating if you're listening to us on the podcast platform. So that's going to do it for this episode of the Fight HQ podcast.